Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. And you can, Dr. Ravindra, I just want to introduce you as a member of the physics program department here at
Oh, that is,
NJIT.
yeah, I'm an old timer. I spent all
You're
my
not,
life at NJIT, and I moved from Paris to NJIT, well, North Carolina, in 1987, before many of you were born. So that's my story. And much of what I do is hang out with graduate students, and
that's
that's
nice.
almost, yeah, yeah, that's what I do. So yeah, and so to me, I take every problem seriously, and so that's, you only have so many hours in a day, but it doesn't matter to me. So whether it's baseball bats or self-healing, self-assembly in biology, whatsoever, I take everything seriously. And that perhaps was my weakness in many ways, but that's fun too, I think sometimes, yeah. And I travel the world, and I speak many languages, so I have enormous passion for the world, and so that's me. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's interesting too that you travel so much. I like to travel as well. I miss it. I hope we can get back to that soon.
Yeah, yeah, it's a beautiful world, it's a gorgeous world today. Yeah.
Yeah. So we appreciate you joining us today and talking to the students about some of the things that you do and maybe if they work with you this semester, how you might be able to advise them.
Oh, excellent. I look forward to it. So I have an open door policy, so you can walk in anytime you want to. So, and students have a cell phone number. They can call me anytime they want to. So it's, yeah.
Thank you. We always appreciate that accessibility. Students say that as well. Thank you. So yeah, anytime you want to get started talking to us about
Yes, yes,
would be
I'm
great.
eager to. So how do I do this? Will you let me share the PowerPoint?
I need to move present privileges to you, which I just have done. So you should have now presenter privileges,
Okay, there we go. I go
and
to
you should be able to share.
share. I
Yeah,
go to screen two.
excellent. We can see. Yep.
Um, and where is screen two? Let's see, where is my screen two?
Hmm.
Um, okay, let me go to PowerPoint.
The
There it
PowerPoint,
is.
maybe? Right there it is.
You bet it is. My dear class, welcome to my class today, and hopefully I'll not bore you too much. And here's what I can do. I'm going to try to face the camera so that I'm not conscious of myself. That's better, isn't it? Is it okay? Can you see the slides? Are
Sorry,
you
here I
okay?
am. The slides just disappeared. Now we're on your we're on your home screen. So
Oh,
we
oh, 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 oh. So I can go back to my apologies. So what I did was to face the camera. In the process, I lost what I was doing because the camera is in one computer.
I
I'm
see.
operating. That's okay. Let me go back to. That's all right. Okay. I think that's better, isn't it? Okay.
We can see it. Yeah, thank you.
So my apologies, class. See, I'm an old man with little practice of technology, but that's okay. So, I didn't know where to start from. And when Dr. Hunt said, Robbie, can you give a talk? I said, sure. I mean, I like to talk, so that's what it's all about, right? So I said, I'll get a little title called creativity because, life is all about creative. So what is it that I believe in and what is it I want to tell you today? So I thought I'll put a next slide here, which is the teacher, the guru, what I look for in the teacher, kind of my personal philosophy. So I thought I should share with you something that I feel about life. And I think life is about trying to be good to people. I think that's important. Life is about sharing. Life is about being a better person. Character, oh boy, that's a tough one, isn't it? And my point in all this is that, folks, life is a transient. Life is a temporary journey on a one-way ticket. So how do we take advantage of life? And so that's where I come from. So it's not about self, wealth, what is in it for me, position, title, competition, I want to be the king of the road, intimidation, revenge. See, the reason I say that is I've seen all of it. I've seen all of it in my 30 plus years, and so I think it's not worth it. So what do I do for a living? I follow the three monkey philosophy, so which is kind of helpful here. My Buddhist friend tells me, Ravi, you should try to lead a life with flowing water. Leave the garbage behind and move on. So that's a tough one to do in life, but I try to practice it. Now, why am I telling you this, folks? I'm telling you this because as a young person, you could practice this so beautifully. As an old person like myself, it's kind of habits die hard, and you cannot straighten an old man's tail, an old dog's tail, I mean. So that's the reason I want to share this slide with you. This slide is very precious to me. The guru, the teacher, the Siddhartha. So that's what I look for. So, okay. All right. What am I going to tell you today about? I'll tell you about creativity. And I'll tell you that it's priceless. And I'll tell you that my personal philosophy is when I'm at NJIT, I have an open door. You can walk in any time into my lab. When I joined NJIT in 1987, I used to have an open door. And today I have an open door. And I want to make that habit contagious. I've failed so far. But I'm hoping someday you guys will learn from that and, keep your door open. An open door is an open mind. I think it's beautiful. I want to talk about New Jersey. I want to talk about history of New Jersey. It's a garden state. Lots of things happen in New Jersey, right? And I'll take you to the city of Patterson, New Jersey, where I do a lot of work these days. And, when I started putting together my presentation a couple of days ago, I was going to tell you so much about what I do in life, but I realized that the time I need is probably a couple of days. And so I don't have that. So I'll talk about example of what I'm doing today on solar cells. And so, does it matter what you study from your perspective? NJIT, Caltech, Berkeley, Harvard, MIT? I don't think so. I think it matters what you do. It matters what you study. It does matter having a good mentor. A good teacher is very helpful to you folks. Conclusion, I would say creativity is just a beginning. It's a beautiful world. For the reading, I'll recommend a few of my own papers. I'll be selfish there if you don't mind. Life's constraints. Life is transient. Focus, 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 focus. Too many diversions. Too many diversions these days, isn't it? The social life, the social media, the television, all that is useless, I think. The cell phone is useless. But I should be careful. I cannot say that. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So, pages from history, folks. Boy. So now suddenly I become emotional, right? I look at this guy. Who is this guy? I couldn't ask for a better role model. Edison. But Edison had a weakness. He was a businessman. So when I tell you the story about Edison and Tesla, it's kind of a sad story. It's sad because these guys were geniuses. They could have worked together, but the competition of AC versus DC, the alternating current versus direct current, and the belief that Tesla thought alternating current was a practical way to transmit electricity, and Edison's belief that DC was the way to go. That is the gist of my story today. Why am I emotional? Well, I'm emotional because I see that these were geniuses, but money was the motivation for Edison that destroyed the friendship. So I'll tell you the story and I'll tell you what I'm doing. Okay, let's go to the next slide. The city of Patterson. The city of Patterson is where the United States' first hydroelectric plant is working today. So if you take a look at the city of Patterson, Patterson today is working with me to put together an entire story of integration of an all DC circuitry. We want to build smart homes that'll take solar energy from the sun and utilize solar cells to put power into homes in Patterson. So City of Patterson and I and a bunch of my friends are working together to build a smart city in the city of Patterson. Why Patterson? Because Patterson is in New Jersey. And I live in New Jersey, and it is a garden state. So please, folks, go to Patterson, take a look at what I'm going to show you today, and perhaps the next 1 year or so, I'll show you the smart home that I'm building in the city of Patterson. Okay, let's talk about Tesla, shall we? Now, Tesla was a genius, but Tesla was not a businessman. So Tesla did not have the financial resources that Edison had. So Tesla needed Edison's help to move forward. And Tesla believed that AC transmission was the way to go for long distance electricity, unlike Edison, who believed in DC as a way to go. So, if we take a look at what Tesla did, Tesla was a firm believer in wireless transmission of electricity, while Edison was a firm believer in portable electricity. So to Edison, electricity was all about batteries. To Tesla, electricity was all about transmission and distribution. So, who are the winners today? We'll talk about that today, folks. And I promise you that at the end of the day, you'll notice that we need both AC and DC to live, okay? So, now, if you take a look at the competition, you want to go up north and take a look at Niagara Falls and take a look at the city of Buffalo. So what you see here is in 1895, April 16th, with the help of Westinghouse, you notice that Tesla was able to demonstrate AC transmission in Niagara Falls. So Niagara Falls is an excellent example of the infrastructure for AC transmission. Okay, so here you go. You got three geniuses, three minds working together. So what am I telling you? What is the correlation between all this I'm telling you today and climate change? Why do we care about greenhouse gases? What are we doing about it today? Let's take a look, folks, okay? So let's take a look at the biggest economies in the world today and the electricity production. What you notice is that the big five are US, China, Japan, Germany, UK, followed by India, France, Italy, Brazil, Canada. So you got the haves and the have-nots, and you'll notice that there's no socialism in the practice of either money or energy sources. What do I mean by socialism? If you take a look at MIT, MIT believes in putting together energy in a bottle, light in a bottle. I was going to talk about that also today. Unfortunately, I don't have time, but I will definitely refer to it in my talk today. So how do you store light in a bottle? And how do you take light to those homes in Africa, those poor people in wherever, right? Latin America, even India, China. So you have a huge discrepancy today between the rich and the poor. And so energy is a possible solution to the problem, right? You want to read books, but you don't have light. So if you can store electricity in a bottle, store light in a bottle, you got some beautiful solution to the problem. So you see a correlation between the biggest economies in the electricity production. So China, US, India, Russia, Japan are the largest producers of electricity. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. If you take a look at the US energy sources, folks, you notice that petroleum is the biggest source of electricity in the US, and renewables represent a very tiny portion of what we want to do. So obviously, you are young minds. I'm being selfish today. I'm saying, think solar, think clean. But to produce solar cells is not a clean process. So I promise you that I preach clean, but the process is not necessarily clean. The manufacturing of silicon solar cell panels is not a clean process. Okay? So if you take a look at global warming, people ask me, Ravi, is this for real? Is it happening today? And the science is very clear. The science tells you that there are very efficient infrared absorbers, such as CO2. So, if you have too much CO2 in the atmosphere, you would absorb a lot of heat, and therefore you would have increased temperature on the planet. So you don't need any politician to tell you that indeed there's a correlation between global warming and CO2. But you would say, Robbie, don't plants need CO2? You need CO2, of course. Vegetation needs CO2, but you don't want too much CO2. So, and therefore, let's talk about greenhouse gases in the next slide, shall we? So, if you take a look at the slide here, I'm talking about methane, nitrous oxide, CO2, carbon monoxide, the CF4, the carbon tetrafluoride, the whole works. And so, on the left-hand side, you have this whole slide telling you about these greenhouse gases that are the result of pollution, so to say. Then you got sulfur dioxide, chlorine, HCl, and all that. And some of these dissolve in water, in the drinking water. So not only do you have problems in the air, but also in the water. And in many parts of the world, water is more precious than gold. You don't need gold to survive, but you need water to survive. So what do? On the right-hand side of the slide, you see here the countries that produce the largest CO2. And China happens to be one of those countries that produce the largest CO2. Now, if you go to China, China is a beautiful country, a gorgeous country. And I have the privilege of going to China once every 4 months, which I missed today. Now, when you go to China, you notice that you don't see the sun in Shanghai and Beijing and all that. You don't see the sun at all. Why? Because there's so much pollution there. So China, India, Brazil, US, I think we have a responsibility to Mother Nature. We should respect Mother Nature, right? Okay, so the next slide. Let's talk about the greenhouse gases and what they do to the climate. So, I mean, you hear Joe Biden talking about climate change these days. So we have a new government that talks about climate change. That's the good news. Hopefully, you'll practice it. Preaching is easy. You can preach. Practicing is hard. Why? Because it's all about money, money, money. So the business determines what happens in the market and in manufacturing. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So here I talk about the NASA's results from global warming. and the correlation between temperature and the year of recordings. You notice that from 1880 to 2020, clearly the temperature of the climate has gone up, and that's what you see on the right-hand side of the slide. So, indeed, what I'm saying is that global warming is real, and it's not political. Like COVID-19 is not political. COVID-19 is real. The 500,000 deaths in the United States is real. It's not political. Okay. So you see the solution that I'm preaching today is renewable source energy. And I said, therefore, that let us take a look at Mother Nature. We've been so blessed. You got this beautiful sun, right? Again, sun is location, 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 like wind. So you could argue that during night, you don't have the sun. What can you do? So I would say let's integrate solar with wind, and let us integrate solar with wind with thermoelectrics. So you have a wonderful solution to utilizing renewables to address your needs. And then you could have rechargeable batteries or so-called supercapacitors to do the work of the demand on energy at night, right? So that is a mantra that I want to preach to you today. Grow up using solar, wind, thermoelectrics, and so on, right? Okay, so what is sun? What am I doing at NJIT? Why do I preach solar? You know, it's so interesting. I grew up in India, in the north of India. I was born in the south of India, and I would travel some 3,000 to 4,000 kilometers each year to go from one part of India to the other part of India. I'm from the south of India, and I would travel for 3 to 4 days by train. And these trains would be driven by primarily coal. I'm talking of 1977, before any of you were born. So I grew up in the south of India, and I went to the school to do my PhD in the north of India, near the mountains, near the Himalayas. It's cold country. It's as cold as in New Jersey. And so it's one where clearly the weather determines the habits. So what you will see in some of the parts of India is that the river, the river is a meeting point for a variety of applications. Unfortunately, in India, you'll also notice that the river is a meeting point for some rituals that are very sad. So, to celebrate life, people go to the river in India. To celebrate the ultimate, they go to the river in India. The time between the birth and the ultimate is called life, and they celebrate life on the banks of the rivers. So you'll notice a lot of pollution in the rivers of India, but also the rivers supply the water, the drinking water, to many people in India. And that is true for many people across the world. So what I'm suggesting here is that let's respect the resources that nature has given to us, two precious resources, water and light, or sun for the matter. Okay, let's take a look at the sun for a moment. I'm sorry, I got diverted with my philosophy there, isn't it? So, what am I saying? I'm saying here before that if you take a look at solar energy, you notice that 52% is near infrared, 43% is visible light. So let's take the visible light, let's celebrate, let's party with the visible light with solar cells. So how do you do that? How do you celebrate life with solar cells? We're blessed to live in New Jersey. New Jersey is the mother of all states vis-a-vis innovation and inventions. Kid in New Jersey, unfortunately, he's going away from all that. No more Bell Labs, no more Sarnoff, no more pharma, perhaps, hopefully not. So here's an excellent patent from Bell Labs that talks about solar cells. So on the left of the slide here is the original patent issued in 1954 on solar cells. On the right-hand side is an 1884 solar cells made of selenium on a New York rooftop. Okay, so I told you that sunlight is got much of its component of the visible. What can you do with it? So here you go. Much of what I do is material science. So much of what I do is semiconductors. So if you take a look at Mother Nature, silicon or silica is plenty in nature. You go to the beach, what do you see there? You see lots of silica. Silica is SiO2. You decompose silica, what do you get? You get silicon. Can you imagine life without silicon? Can you imagine life without your solar cell? Can you imagine life without your cell phone? Can you imagine life without your computers? That is silicon for you. We coexist with silicon 24 hours a day without knowing what silicon is. Silicon is the bread and butter of our technology today. Unfortunately, silicon has got a property known as indirect band gap. In other words, silicon is not necessarily the best material for making solar cells. If you take a look at the middle graph that I plot there for you, it just so happens that cadmium telluride is the best material for photovoltaic conversion, except that cadmium is toxic. Cadmium is highly poisonous, and therefore silicon continues to dominate the market for solar cell conversion. So, having said that, silicon solar cell is primarily a DC source, not an AC source. In other words, what I'm saying is that a silicon solar cell is like a battery that you would buy in Walmart, right? So DC sources are portable. You can carry it in your pocket. AC sources are not portable. That's what you have in your plug and play at home. But the problem is every device that you use at home is a DC device, whether it's a computer or your cell phone or any electronic device that you use at home is primarily a DC device. What am I saying here? You must convert the AC that you're getting from Niagara Falls or wherever into DC to be able to use the DC. So you must have what is called a rectifier, an AC to DC converter to convert the AC into DC so that you could use a DC. Not only that, you need to reduce the voltage to a much lower value to be compatible with what you need for your semiconductor device. Therefore, AC transmission has problems. What is the problem? AC transmission has to be reduced to voltage that is compatible with your device. But AC transmission is a blessing because AC transmission occurs so beautifully over long distances, unlike DC transmission. Therefore, Tesla was right when he said AC transmission is the way to go for the world to move on. DC transmission has enormous problems because over long distances, DC transmission has what is called losses. But with the smart grid technology today, with the smart home that I'm going to build with my friends in the city of Patterson, I'm going to have an all DC home where every device in the home is going to be solid state or semiconductor based. Solid state lighting, which means that I'd use LEDs for lighting, just like in Taiwan, just like in China, where I'll use all 24-volt DC or 40-year-old DC appliances from LG or any other company. I'm saying therefore that DC transmission is possible and is practical today as long as it is done over what is called smart grid technology, which is where you control the management of power within the home. AC transmission is good for long distances. Okay, so having justified AC versus DC, let's go to the next slide. And here, for the last 30 plus years, I've been working with a DOE at a place called Denver, Colorado, in Golden, Colorado, actually, with the National Renewable Energy Labs. My folks, I've been so blessed to have a 20-year contract from DOE at NJIT to work on solar cells. I grew up with solar cells in 1970s. My PhD was on solar cells. And today I work on solar cells. What's wrong? I've grown old, but I continue to work on solar cells. Why? Because solar cells, like windmills, is extremely political. Why am I saying that? It depends on what is called state rebates. Unless you get a rebate from the state, these clean energy sources are not cheap. They're expensive. Why are they expensive? Because the market is limited. If you have a larger market, you got a larger demand, then you could have more people using it and therefore lower price. So I'm saying therefore the weakness in clean technology is that we preach clean technology, we don't practice clean technology. If you practice it, the cost can come down. Okay? So here is cost. Money is the prime mover of life. What's wrong with me today? Folks, I told you, don't depend on material wealth, but I'm telling you, you cannot live without it, right? There's a contrast in life. So, okay, having said that, let's have some high points today, shall we? If you take a look at solar panels and costs in the market, suppose you decide, Ravi, I want to install a solar panel. What is the cost? There you go. On the right-hand side of the slide, I tell you what the power needs are for your home and what the cost can be for installed panel for a 30-year lifetime, right? Why 30 years? Because the market generally is for 30 years. The roof expectancy is 30 years. The home life expectancy is 30 years, and therefore 30 years. Okay. So sun power happens to be having the highest efficiency in terms of the solar panel efficiency. Unfortunately, it's pretty hard to compete with China. In any manufacturing sector today, folks, China is the dominant country. Why is that? Everything's subsidized in China. So the federal government is involved in everything that happens in China, unlike the United States, where the private sector dominates what's happening here. Okay? So, folks, I guess you got no questions, is it? Well, let's see. Let's go to the next slide. Back to our story, the War of the Currents. So the geniuses. If the geniuses could work together, the world would be so beautiful. And the world is beautiful today. Back to Tesla and Edison. And back to what I'm doing in the city of Patterson. So, folks, over the next 1 year, by working with a startup in New Jersey and New York, my collaborators and I are putting together a manufacturing plant in the city of Patterson that'll bring in about 150 jobs to the city of Patterson. What we want to do is to create jobs in the city of Patterson, work with NJIT, work with other universities, including the community college in the city of Patterson, to build clean homes and bring technology to practice. That's the whole idea of what we want to do within the next 1 year. So I wanted to kind of leave you with some smart grid technology, what's involved in smart grid. Folks, you're all very smart. Why are you smart? You're at NJIT and you're listening to me. You must be smart, right? Having said that, you got a smart home on the right-hand side, which hopefully will be an all DC home with no connectivity to the grid. Grid independence is a mantra that we want to practice here. Grid independence. Okay? And if you have excess energy, put it back into the grid. That is even smarter, isn't it? Okay, so you want to ask me if cost drives everything, what is the anticipation in 2050? And my friends in NREL in the USDOE tell me they anticipate that onshore wind, let's see, is it correct? Onshore wind will have the lowest cost in the next 30 years. Wind, so onshore wind, again, wind is location, location, location. So what do you do if you have wind, let's say, windmills on seashores or on the ocean? You got to bring it to the land and you got to store them through smart batteries. You got lots of work to do. Nothing is easy, folks, but that's what you're for. You are the future of this country and you'll make it happen. Now, AC versus DC. So I cannot leave you without telling you that these geniuses, Edison and Edison and Tesla, coexist in our life today on a daily basis. We could not live without them. Conclusions, folks. I get so emotional, isn't it? So, what am I telling you in conclusion? I'm telling you, therefore, that smart grid technology is an enabler of future transmission and distribution of power. You guys are smart people and you'll make it happen, right? Why am I telling you this? There's so much energy lost in AC to DC conversion and the resulting DC being dissipated as heat. Suppose you go to your refrigerator, air condition your home, and feel the back of it. Folks, so much heat is being lost. Well, I could say I'm going to use Peltier effect or thermoelectric to capture that. But what I'm saying is that you do an all DC home, it'll be a smart home because you're smart people. It's that simple, right? And then you want to live with semiconductors. You live with semiconductors anyway. Your laptops, your desktops, your cell phones, you name it. To that you want to add solid state lighting, LEDs. Of course you want to drive a Tesla. Of course you want to drive, right? So the solution therefore is an all DC home where everything is semiconductors, including your smart car, which is a Tesla or any other model. And then, of course, you got an excellent climate, pollution prevention, climate control, and folks, you got an excellent world, beautiful world, mutual respect, no competition, not for water, not for electricity, no wars, all peace. And that's my message to you today, folks. Enjoy nature, enjoy solar, enjoy wind, enjoy thermoelectrics. Now, what do I do as the next slide? So I'm going to tell you guys, I'm selfish here. I'm selfish. I listed only my papers here, right? Why is it? Because I'm saying NJIT is doing good work. Please read those papers. And if you need them, I'd be happy to email it to you. All right, folks, thank you so much. Thank you, doctor. Thanks so much.
Thank you too. I completely relate to. I put a lot of energy. There's so many different kinds of energy I put into teaching as well. So I always appreciate the statements from other members of our faculty who say, "I'm getting so excited about this," or "I'm getting so emotional." I understand.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm actually going to share, I can even cut and paste from the slide, maybe these lists of readings, because we do different activities in this class where we read faculty publications. So
Oh,
the
excellent.
student, yeah, so the students are working on, sort of a literature review exercise just to get some practice in reading scholarly literature and looking up, information in databases. So I'll certainly add these pieces to that rotation for the next round as well. Um,
Thank you so much.
yeah.
Doctor, to add to what you said, if you take a look at reference number 4, which is not numbered here, I call this Mars, a magnetically augmented rotational systems. The title of the paper is Intelligent Manipulation of Controllable Magnetic Fields. Please take a look at the talk I gave in India and in China in 2016 and 2015. And take a look at the paper number 3, Mars, Magnetic Augmented Rotational Systems. Please take a look at that. So the idea is not to use conventional gears in any mechanical device. Replace all the mechanical gears by contactless gears. What am I doing in my group? I'm saying therefore that I'll replace every gear which has teeth by teethless magnetic components, which through the concept of repulsion will drive one after the other. So I use what's called magnetic coupling or decoupling to drive gears. And anytime you got a change in magnetic fields, you also produce electricity thanks to Michael Faraday's laws of induction. So what am I doing? I'm reducing the noise of the windmills. I'm reducing the vibration of the windmills. I'm eliminating the need for grease or, let's say, friction in the windmills. And therefore, I'm preaching magnetism as I talk solar at the same time. And therefore, when you build your next windmill, folks, don't use any gears. Replace all the gears by teethless magnets. Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else have a question for Dr. Ravindra before we depart today? You can unmute or you can put it in the chat. Does anyone have a question? We really appreciate the open door policy as well. I feel like that is something that's starting to be more commonplace at NJIT, but I agree with you, not as much as maybe we would like. Because part of what we're doing in this class is introducing students to faculty who, like yourself, are very interested in being mentors and welcome students in and their ideas and their different their interests and how they can learn from you and other faculty members. So we appreciate that.
Thanks, Doctor. Thank you so much. Class, thank you. Send me an email, send me or contact me by cell phone, whichever. I'd be happy to talk to you. And come to my lab, please stay safe, of course.
We will do. We thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you.
today and all the information, and we will certainly be in touch. Thank you, Dr. Ravindra. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Have a nice weekend. Thank you so much.
Bye. Take
Thanks.
care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. All right, class, as STS 205 students, if you have any questions for me, you can reach out. Thank you for joining today. I'm going to end the meeting, but I'll send an email out about posting the recording. So if we want to go back and watch elements of it or think through some of the different things that went by maybe quickly, that will be available to you as well. All right. Thank you, everybody, so
Thanks,
much.
Doctor. Thank you.
Have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Thank you.